All right. Happy Sabbath for those of you who are Adventists, bless your hearts. And welcome to the Good Night Show. We are excited for you all to be here today. We ask at this time, if you are on, just say hello, drop a hello in the comment box, and please share this video if you can. So if you are on right now, just share the video, drop a comment, say hello. That would be wonderful. Thank you all very much. We are excited to have everybody here today. We're excited to have our guests. And, I feel like I haven't brought on Remy, but I feel like Remy is going to be a co-host with me. We've been coming up with the questions together. It's been great. It's been some good stuff. But tonight, we will talk about being is a vegan lifestyle really for you? A lot of people are on these health journeys. It's the beginning of the year. We're at the gym. We're doing all type of stuff. So should we be eating in a different kind of way? Should we watch what we eat? And so we're going to talk about that today. So I ask again that before we bring on our guests, that you please share the video. Make sure that you are commenting. Just say hello in the comments if you are here. We would love to just, see who's watching so far. And share. So we should be doing that as well. But again, thank you all for joining us. It's exciting to be here tonight to discuss simply, it's the vegan lifestyle for us. All right. So we have here our good brother Remy. Dave. Sorry, I was trying to go back.
How y'all
doing? So you want to
no matter. You're good. So,
and yeah, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
The name is Dave Remington West, but people often call me Remy. Doesn't matter to me. Whatever's comfortable for people. I don't have much else to add. Anything you want me to give them?
No. That's fine. That's fine. I'm good with that. All right. So
and now Oakwood graduate too.
He's an Oakwood graduate. So this show is dominated by Oakwood people. And here is a Oakwood professor. My professor, Miss Green Goodman. We are Donna Green Goodman. We are so happy to have you on with us today. It is such a blessing. I want to just say personally that, overall, I got a chance to be in her class. And there are certain things I will never forget about being at Oakwood University. But one of the things for sure is being in Donna Green Goodman class. I tell you, it was some powerful moments there. Just hearing her story, hearing her lifestyle as a vegan. And then I remember and I don't know if she remembers this. I'm sure you do because she did it. But she had these fries from McDonald's, and I believe it was a hamburger there, and she had it there for years, and they all looked the same. So after 3 or 4 years, I was there. And so I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy. But we are happy to have her to discuss the, just being a vegan and things like that. So let's bring her on. Let me take you off mute. You want to just do a quick introduction about what you're doing now and, kind of how you got to this vegan lifestyle?
Thank you for considering me to join you this evening. I'm proud of both of you guys. I keep up with you on social media. I too am an Oakwood alum, grew up in Huntsville, and I came back to teach in 2006 when our family relocated to Huntsville after having worked in Georgia and South Carolina for a number of years in public health. Currently, my husband and I own Lifestyle Therapeutics, which is a physical therapy rehab center and wellness center where he does rehab and I do wellness coaching, health education, and plant-based cooking classes. His specialty is lifestyle physical therapy. He's been certified by the University of Alabama in Birmingham to not just treat a patient who perhaps has had a stroke or who has diabetic neuropathy with traditional treatments, but to also discuss with them how they can make other choices to improve their health. So after he admits them for physical therapy, then I evaluate them and I literally ask them lifestyle questions and I walk them through where we're going to go from here so that they can make better choices for their lives so that when they leave, they're in better shape than when they got there. And that's what we've been doing for the last 5 years. I ended up doing plant-based. My husband and son and I were literally thinking about it when my son was about 7 or 8 years old. all I really was doing was drinking milk. And my husband's like, we need to stop. We really need to stop. And I slowed down on it because I only drank it in my cereal on Sabbath morning. I wasn't a big milk drinker. He and my son preferred to drink it. And then that year, I went for a regular checkup, and we have been following a lump in my breast that had been there for a while, that came back from one that I had had before. And the doctor said, why don't we just do a mammogram to be sure, because we'd not had any problems with it. It acted just like the previous one did. And I took it. And then he asked my husband and I, when was the last time we'd been on vacation? And we couldn't tell him. And so he said that he was prescribing that we take a vacation. And he asked us, where we wanted to go. We didn't know. So he said, try Cancun. That's where I take my staff all the time. We found tickets. He said, call me when you've booked your flight. And we did. And we went away for an amazing week in Cancun. And then we came home and I got a call that we needed to come back and do some more tests. I went back. Then we got on a plane and went out to Portland, Oregon for another vacation. Wow. And when I came back the second time, that's when they said, okay, you need to see a specialist. Went to see the specialist. You can watch this or we can have surgery. I decided to find another surgeon locally, went to the surgeon, scheduled the surgery. And as soon as she opened me up, she knew that I had breast cancer. She asked my husband not to tell me, and he held that for about a month. And then the night before the 4th of July, they were preparing for the Peachtree Road Race, and my girlfriend was sitting next to me, called the doctor, and she said, you do indeed have breast cancer. We need to do more surgery. And so at the time, I was working for the state of Georgia in a nutrition program for the public health department. And we were developing programs that were going to be used in the 159 counties around the state to improve their lifestyles, especially their nutrition choices. And prior to that, I was at Morehouse School of Medicine teaching people how not to get cancer. Wow. And here I was with cancer. And so in that moment, I went back to all the things that I had been teaching them. And I'm like, something's not right here, because every doctor that I talked to, Remy and Antoine, kept saying that the last doctor didn't give you the whole story. It's bad. You only have 2 to 5 years to live. And unless
What year is this?
Huh?
What year was this?
This was in 1996.
Wow.
And they said 2 to 5 years to live unless you do chemotherapy, stem cell transplant, more chemotherapy, radiation, and get on tamoxifen for 5 years. And because of my experience and my training, I had questions. I was looking for something that wasn't as toxic, that would not harm my body as much. And as I questioned them, I found out that most of the women who did the treatment that they were recommending died anyway in less than 5 years. And that's when I decided I needed to back up and see if I could find something else. And I prayed about it and decided that I was going to call Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital in North Georgia, got on the phone with them, and they asked me, are you vegetarian? I'm like, of course I'm vegetarian. I've always been. I've never had meat in my life. And they said, do you do dairy products? And I'm like, yeah, that's what vegetarians do. And they said, well, we need you to stop that. And that was when I made the decision that I was going to give up all animal products. And I began to make the connection between animal products and their impact on the body. And so I made the decision then, went to Wildwood for 10 days, and I've been plant-based for the last 25 years. It'll be 25 years this July.
Wow. You've answered a few of our questions already. I'm going to let Remy go ahead.
I was about to say, yeah, you definitely covered some things, but that's good. Like everything you talked about, the transition and the thing that moved you to that point to do that, I mean, that's pretty major. And I think that's what's pushing a lot of people these days to make the transition as well. Sorry if my connection is not that good. I don't know if you catch everything that I'm saying, but just let me know if you need me to repeat it. Okay. So, I mean, definitely a common misconception and very popular question. A lot of people who are not vegan, they love to ask, where do you get your calcium? Where do you get your protein? Are you missing any of that?
One of the most interesting things, I worked as a home economist for a number of years before I started doing public health nutrition. And one of the things that we used to teach our patients was they needed 2 servings of protein per day. and that would be about the size of the palm of your hand. So if you were a meat eater, whatever meat you ate needed to fit in the palm of your hand, and you only needed that twice a day. If you were vegetarian, lacto-ovo-vegetarian, that would be like peanut butter or beans. And back then we used to be into food combining so that you would get equal amounts of protein. What we did not do at that time was to also take account for if you're eating fried chicken or a steak, you also have rice and maybe broccoli or collards or something else on the plate that also provides protein as well. And so the myth that you don't get enough protein or calcium when you go to a plant-based diet is simply that. We are getting way more protein than our body requires. And when we decide to back up off of animal products, we come closer to what the body actually needs. And then the sources of protein used to only be stuff like beans, which are a good source of protein, higher source of protein. And they would say peanut butter. And then I mentioned food combining. We used to always say beans and rice or peanut butter on whole grain bread, something like that. But what we're discovering is, and I don't know that we'll get to this place in our discussion, I tend to run what science says through the Word of God. And in probably the last 20 years, I've discovered some data that shows that sweet potatoes and broccoli and brown rice all have amounts of protein in them. And the protein that they have in them are all of the essential amino acids. And those are amino acids that your body can't make. You have to eat them. And so if you're eating a sweet potato and some broccoli and rice and some beans and a salad, maybe with some sunflower seeds on it, you probably exceeded the amount of protein that your body needs just from that meal. The same conversation happens when it comes to the calcium sources. Your body needs calcium. It doesn't need milk. And there's more calcium in a cup of collard greens, and that means something to Black people, than it is in a cup of milk. And your body absorbs it better than it does from an animal source. The other thing that has plagued me over the years, and Antoine knows this, that I am pro brown and Black people. And a lot of the counseling that I have done for patients who are Black or brown are not interested in foods outside of their culture. And so for a person of Caribbean descent, when you're talking getting enough calcium, and you may say collard greens, they don't do collards, they do callaloo. And so what I have tried to do is identify foods that are more culturally relevant, that God created, that people can also get what they need from for the body, if that makes sense. So you don't have to worry about calcium. Neither do you have to worry about protein. And when you're eating a whole lot of meat, literally, the body leaches calcium from the bones because you get too much, and that can lead to osteoporosis. But when you're eating it the way that God intended, you get everything that you need.
Wow. Now that's great. That's great. Yeah, because that's one of the biggest concerns. Like, are we getting enough calcium? So what I've realized, so a lot of people say, so are vegans angry? Because, that's a big thing. Like vegans, they're angry. And what I've noticed lately, this is something I've noticed from vegans, they drink a lot of alcohol. So is it causing folks to drink because the limited meat? What's happening with that?
Okay. There's another question that you all had on the list that I'm going to jump to answer this question. Veganism is a lifestyle. Okay. And in the truest sense of the word, I'm not a vegan. Okay. True veganism is based in sanctity of the life of the animal. And their emphasis is more on not using anything relative to animal life, not wearing anything relative to animal life, and protecting the life of the animal. So while they don't eat animals, they don't wear the animals, they don't eat honey, but they do drink alcohol and they do caffeine. my approach to plant-based living, and recently, I know when I teach, sometimes I'll use the word vegan or plant-based interchangeably, but I'm more a plant-based, plant-powered person because I don't do the alcohol, I don't do the caffeine, and I literally, it's funny to me that they tend to play down or downplay the impact of alcohol on the body if they're so into health, because they don't want to eat, honey, because the bee is involved in it. But you're going to ferment something and drink that, which is known to impact your brain and your liver and a whole bunch of other stuff. And so the way that you come to plant-based living is, of course, your choice. But if your total health is where you're trying to go, then you're going to limit or eliminate your consumption of alcohol and things that are fermented and things that can change the brain pattern, like caffeine. Whether they're angry or not, I don't know about that, Antoine. I mean, I think sometimes in our circle of belief, you see that, because we tend to fight a lot about who is, who isn't, all that sort of stuff. But generally speaking, I don't run into them unless they're trying to defend where they're coming from.
Gotcha.
And if you're eating healthier, you should be a happier person, because you have taken the weight of things that are harmful off of your system, which should lighten you and your mood and everything, and you should be a happier person.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm gonna let Remy ask the next question. Again, if you're joining us, we are here talking about the lifestyle of a vegan person. What should we be doing? What should we be doing? And how does it affect our health? Please share the video. Please comment any questions you might have. That'll be wonderful. Go ahead, Remy.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I gotta ask this next question, but to preface it, I became a vegan, and this was some years ago now, and I definitely am curious about what else has impacted your choice into becoming a vegan, and specifically, how has your health and your lifestyle choices affected your spiritual life, and how has your spiritual life also affected your health and your lifestyle choices?
One of the things in a patient that we had who became vegan, plant-based, one of the first things that he noticed, he was, you've heard of the Anointed Pace Sisters gospel group, perhaps. He was the brother to them. You may not have, it's okay. But they're a gospel group out of Atlanta, big family, 8 girls, and they had this brother. And he became our patient, and he, through a course of discussion and everything, he decided to go plant-based. And the first thing he said he noticed was he could hear the voice of God differently. I believe that when our minds are clear, and because we are people of faith, we know the story of Adam and Eve in the Bible, and of Jesus when he was on earth and went into the wilderness and fasted for those 40 days. When we are our bodies are full of stuff that affects our brain. For instance, when we eat a diet that's high in animal products or animals, the cholesterol and saturated fat is what lays tracks almost on our blood vessels. And it's not just in our heart, it's throughout our body. So then the blood vessels in the brain are also affected. That's essentially what happens when a person has a stroke. Is too much that's there, and boom, that happens. When that is not there, then the blood can flow better, which means you're going to be able to concentrate more and your brain is going to be clearer. One of the things for me personally was, before I started living this way, I used to justify a lot of stuff. And for me, meat wasn't ever the problem, but caffeine was. And I love cheese. And so when I pulled those things,
me too. I love cheese.
It was so good. And Remy, you talk about knowing our son Ivy. When I was nursing him, we were not vegan, and he had allergies. And my mother's like, "Why are his eyes like that all the time?" And when we stopped, this is when he was 7 years old, we stopped. Within the first 3 months, all of that went away. And so even as a breastfeeding mother, I was passing that allergic response onto my child. And cheese was one of his favorite foods. And so before I became plant-based, I would justify, okay, if I eat a little of this and then I exercise or I drink some water, then I'll get rid of it.
Everybody does that.
The day when the doctors were talking to me about risk factors associated with breast cancer that I was choosing to do for the first time in my life, I saw it as going against the will of God. And to him who knows to do good and doeth it not, it is sin. And because I had a death sentence, it was hard for me to continue to do something that I knew was harmful and expect God to take care of me. And so that was the day that I ran to my room and fell on my knees and I said, Father, I acknowledge my transgressions. Please forgive me, for I have sinned. And that's how it came together for me. And then as I began to make the changes, oh my goodness, stuff just started flying in my head and my relationships got better and I wasn't as stressed about things. And so spiritually, not religiously, but spiritually, I had a different relationship with God and a different relationship with other people. And I think that as long as I continue to make those choices, those things continue to get better, if that answers your question.
Yeah. No, that's great. Wow. So somebody would take your last comment and say, is it a sin to eat meat? Or, like, is that what you're saying?
Well, no,
it's hard to get rid of those chicken and burgers.
It is. It really is.
I never was a fan of burgers, but until I got to Alabama, and that was just a different kind of burger. Now, I've been set free though from the burgers.
But you still like the chicken? You still like the chicken?
No. I'm pescatarian.
Okay.
So because when I turned vegetarian, so this is what happened to me. Bless my heart. I went down there and I was eating a bunch of cheese at the restaurants. And so I was like, yo, I know this can't be healthy. And so then I read something like, it's better to eat a piece of like fish instead of eating all the cheese.
Okay, so that's the way you did it.
Do you agree?
I talk to a lot of people who are outside of our faith tradition. And one of the things that my husband does, literally, especially in talking to his diabetic patients, is he shows them pictures of the blood vessels with the plaque in it and explains to them that this is why you can't feel your feet. And they're like, the doctor never told me that. Jeez. And so to make a better choice than that, if you don't want to get an amputation, you probably need to make some changes. When it comes to the sin thing, in the Bible, before sin, there was fruits, nuts, and grains. And in his wisdom, after sin, he added vegetables, which we now understand are amazingly protective to the body. When he had the conversation with humans about consuming meat, he gave them permission to eat it. So you can't say that if you're eating it, it's sinful. The place where it becomes sinful if you're a believer is if you are not eating it according to the way the Bible says to eat it. And a lot of times we, in our tradition, get into this argument about, well, it's clean. Well, yeah, it is. But there are also two specific things that God said that you should never eat. It shall be an abomination unto you, and never shall you eat the blood of the animal or the fat of the animal. And it's easy to think about that from a meat perspective. But when you start looking at food in general, cheese is the fat of the animal. Milk is the fat of the animal.
Really?
The ice cream, yeah.
Jesus?
Is the fat of the animal. And it says clearly, you should never, ever, ever eat the fat or the blood. It makes sense. The blood is where everything that's going on in the body is. And so if you're eating the animal with the blood in it, you're getting everything that the animal has in it. And this God said to us because he loved us and he knew the impact that it would have. So here we are, 2020 years later, after he walked the earth, and our patients who have diabetes or heart disease or cancer or multiple sclerosis or any other of these chronic illnesses, fat from the animal and blood from the animal are implicated in those things. So because of my training as a health educator, what I like to do is present the facts and help people come to a decision about what they decide to do. So the sin is not the eating of the meat. The sin is in the eating of the meat that is not kosher. That's clearly against the word of God.
Yes, indeed. And let me jump in here real quick before you ask your next question, Antoine.
Oh, go ahead.
I got a short question and a long comment. I can concur with everything that you've been saying just off of the science that I've looked at as well, and the personal experience from people in terms of how they eat and what they don't eat now, when they make the transition. For sure, God definitely says in the Bible not to eat the fat and the blood, not just because it's unhealthy, but because it's kind of like a drug in a sense. When I talk to people who've experienced both meat with fat and blood in it, and they cook it that way, and then they do it without, they say the taste is night and day. They can't enjoy it like they used to. And they have a hard time letting it go or trying to switch to what you might call kosher or halal meat. And I think that's a reason why Jesus only ate fish, because it was easy to get rid of blood, and there was virtually no fat in clean fish that you could eat. Of course, now people still say, oh yeah, it's a clean animal. But, these days, a lot of fish life are farm raised with full of antibiotics that aren't good for you. And the other thing would be, because of pollution, you have to deal with mercury and other microplastics that end up in a fish.
And the way that it stays in your blood system, when the vegetarian fish is eaten by the meat-eating fish, and then the human eats that fish, all of the toxins that are in the fish are multiplied tremendously higher when they're stored in your body. And I think for those of us in our faith tradition, we have focused so much on you're going to hell if you do this or if you don't do that, rather than just presenting the information from a scientific and spiritual basis and letting people make the decision for themselves. The other thing that I think of, people who have heart disease, when they go in to do a bypass, they're scraping the cholesterol and the saturated fat out of the blood vessel that only comes from the meat and the meat byproducts, milk, cheese, ice cream, yogurt, all of that. And you all are young men, so you probably are not running into this problem yet, but erectile dysfunction is directly related to the consumption of animal products. And my husband calls it the canary in the coal mine, as the first sign for men that they either have hypertension or heart disease, because literally the blood vessels in the penis are the smaller blood vessels that can get clogged the quickest. And so we go and get all these medications to assist, when the answer literally is get off of the fat and the blood and get to the plant-based foods. Stuff like a yellow watermelon has been proven to increase erectile ability. I mean, it's
so you don't need Viagra. You need to get off the meat. That's what you're saying.
Literally, that's the answer. There's a study that was done in California of black men and white men. They could not understand why the black men had so much prostate cancer compared to the white men in the same community. When they did the study, they discovered the difference was black people love chicken. And they were eating so much more chicken than the white men were. And there's substances in the chicken that go straight to the prostate, turn on some cancer-causing things, and that's why the men had it as much. And so to explain it that way, and then allow you to make your choice, knowing that you understand the consequence of your choice, to him to knoweth to do good and doeth it not. Because another
you laying it down for us for sure.
Huh?
I said you laying it down. I know a lot of men probably think about we need to go vegetarian. No,
every patient that my husband has who has erectile dysfunction, he will speak to them quietly, because he knows if they come in there with diabetic neuropathy or have had a stroke, they probably have erectile dysfunction. And we had one patient in particular who was in denial about everything the wife was saying, but let me tell you, that ain't working. And so they decided to make the changes. And a few weeks later, she said, things are waking up. It turns around just like that. It literally turns around just like that. And we don't talk about it that way, but it makes sense. And the Bible says, above all things, I want you to prosper and be in good health. God thought of everything. And he doesn't just want us to prosper and be in good health, but as his children, he wants us to be the leaders of the pack, just like Daniel and the 3 Hebrew boys were. who only ate the plant foods and they were 10 times better than.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he wants for us. And then we can share this information with other people, especially our people who are leading the pack with disease and disability. And it doesn't have to be that way, and it can be reversed.
Got you. I wanted so as we wrap up, if I wanted to become a vegan, like, should I start cold turkey? Like, when I originally became vegetarian, I'll be honest, I went and was like, I'm gonna be vegetarian, and I never looked back except that one day I was like,
I gotta look back.
The first day, it was the first day actually. I came home and my grandmother, I was in Alabama. My grandmother had made some chicken that it was cold. And I was like, I know this chicken is for me. And it was the best chicken I ever had in my life. So I'm thankful for that. But that was the last time I ever ate chicken. But if I wanted to start becoming a vegan, like, what do you suggest? Because a lot of people say that's a very expensive lifestyle as well. So what do you suggest about that?
If you want to, today can be the last day that you eat any meat. That's how I did it, because my life was at stake and I wanted to live and not die. If you need to do 1 day a week where I'm not going to eat meat, okay. If you want to decide that Sabbath is the only time that you're going to have it and you're not going to eat it through the week. If you decide that you're not going to have any meat in your home, but you may eat it if you go out, there are a number of ways that you can go about it. It is not more expensive unless you are going to use a lot of the processed foods, not just processed veggie meat, but processed foods. And I like to pay attention when I go grocery shopping here in town. You all may remember the store Kroger here. And when I go shopping, I literally put my fruits and vegetables at the front of the line so that I can see the cost of it. And I might get 10 or 12 items and it might end up being about $8. And then when they start ringing up the milk, the vegan milks and the crackers that my husband likes, the wheat crackers that he likes and all that other stuff, the numbers just start shooting up high. So if you're going to shop on the perimeter of the store where the fresh fruits and veggies are, it's not as expensive. If you're going to shop in season, my husband likes grapefruit. And he asked me every year in July, have you bought any grapefruit? I'm like, no, babe, we get grapefruit between December and February when it's in season. And so when food is in season, it's less expensive. If you take time to plan your meals, it's less expensive. If you're not the type who cooks, but needs to eat out every once in a while, if you plan where you're eating and you don't have to eat everything that they bring to you on the plate, you can take some home with you for another meal. It's easy. When you do big stuff like beans and rice and pasta dishes, those are far less expensive. It's only expensive when we add a whole bunch of processed stuff to the dietary.
And I'll add on top of that, like, I think one of the helpful things to finding, food that's vegan outside of your home, I think there's this app called Happy Cow. Maybe you've heard of it. Yeah, it's pretty useful in finding restaurants that have vegan options or fully vegan. I've used that. And of course, you can plug your book as well if you want to kind of.
Thank you. I've done 3 books actually. The first one is the one you mentioned, Something to Shout About, which is my testimony on breast cancer, tips on healthy living, and about 100 recipes. While I was teaching Antoine, I wrote this one, which is Cooking Up Good Health, and we did a cooking show that goes along with this. And now you can see this on our YouTube channel, Lifestyle Therapeutics. And then about 2 years ago, I did a third one, which is an ebook called Still Cooking Up Good Health. And that's available on our website, Lifestyle Therapeutics, spelled THERAPEUTIX.com.
Can you show those books one more time?
Yes.
Awesome. Yes, we appreciate that. So Something to Shout About. And what was the last one?
Cooking Up Good Health. And the ebook is Still Cooking Up Good Health. And the thing with Still Cooking Up Good Health, what I decided to do with that one was to do kind of like a history of health in our community. And I have featured some Oakwood alum in there who are plant powered. Some of them are people that you went to college with, who literally are about changing people's lives in this world from the perspective of Black and brownness, which is very, very important. I think that's another thing you didn't ask me about. A lot of times when Black and brown people decide to go plant-based, they think that it's all about broccoli, and it ain't. You can eat it, but you can still have your curry stuff and your barbecue stuff if it is from plants and it's seasoned the way that we season our food, compared to, I mean, you can eat couscous if you want to, but you don't have to.
Okay. So do you ever, what if a person like they turn vegan, do you ever feel the urge that like we should cheat? Like, oh, I gotta have some meat one day, I gotta have some pizza, I gotta have some ice cream?
You know, I wasn't diagnosed with breast cancer until I was 37. I had never had a piece of meat in my life. So that's not a temptation to me. And once it was clear to me that I wasn't going to do it anymore, because it could kill me, I stopped doing it. My husband was a meat eater before. And yes, he talked about, you know, I drove through somewhere and I got a such and such because I was having that craving like Antoine was having. My son decided that he was going to do some non-dairy, some dairy stuff. And it shouldn't be a surprise, because when we eat and we eat food that makes us happy, it lights up all the pleasure centers in the brain. And you remember that. Sometimes you can just smell it and it's like, yeah, I need to have it. And if in place that's where you are, the Bible says when you fall down, get back up. Just get back up and okay, back on the journey to better health.
Yeah. Wow. Remy, you got anything else before we close?
It certainly takes some discipline. I agree with that. Some cutting off certain things, maybe even certain people, whatever it takes to improve your health. I would say you should really look into it and speak to people who've experienced it already. Look for positive reinforcement and criticism about what you're doing. You know, you can even cook the food entirely wrong. Just reach out to someone to, I guess, assist you with that, you know. And yeah, there's a lot to learn. It just takes time. No rush.
The other thing I want to say, we know so many people who are ministers, and we tend to hold them to a level of leadership. But I follow Antoine. I mean, he's one of the students that I follow diligently. And I want you to know that when Jesus was on earth, he preached, but he healed more than he preached.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to be a minister trained to change people's lives. So wherever you are on this journey, even if you're not a theologian, if you want to be healthier, make the changes in your own life and then make yourself a committee of one to do it for everybody else. With the young men that Antoine is working with, you can stop some generational stuff just showing them how to make better choices. And then when you can help them make better choices, you change communities and generations and families, and the whole dynamic is just different. And you're doing the work of God. Jesus healed people. And this is what this whole thing about being healthier is about, being made whole, because doctors cannot heal you. But obedience to Jesus for the things that he has asked us to do is what will give us everything we need to be on that journey to healing.
Wow. And we will leave it there. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining. I really appreciate it. It is such a blessing to hear from you again. And I feel like I was back in class today. Remy, you got anything?
Hi.
Hey, Mr. Goodman. And no, I thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Ms. Goodman.
Glad to be here. You all have a great week. Happy Sabbath.
Hey, happy Sabbath. Happy Sabbath. As we end our good night show, feel free to share. Join us as we continue on our healthy lifestyle living. So as you all can know, that it's very important to live healthy and eat healthy. And I think you should look through this video if you came in at the tail end just to get some different things and some different tips about being a vegan. Thank you all. Have a wonderful night. Happy Sabbath to all my Adventists and Oakwood people out there. Bye-bye.